Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Larry.
Hi, I'm Cyndi.
I'm Renny.
And I'm Josh. And today we're going to be going over our very first play for season 16. And it's a play that Larry picked, and it's another Shakespeare play. Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. I would say that this is my second favorite play. The only one I liked better was Macbeth. But I read this back in high school during my sophomore year. And I think that it was the other classroom that tied in a trip to the Olive Garden with reading Caesar. We went to Olive Garden because we had a vote, and it beat out Empire Buffet and Applebee's.
Did you have the Caesar salad?
I had the Olive Garden salad. They're noteworthy. Yeah. I've had some good Caesar salads as a recent. The Barone salad that I had earlier this week, which was quite nice. I just thought about the shaved Parmesan, which was. But you have a discussion started, Larry?
Yes. Toward the end of the play, after Brutus kills himself, Mark Antony, while pondering the happenings of the play, says that Brutus was the only one of the conspirators that had a noble motive for killing Caesar. I want to know if you guys agreed with that, or if you thought that Antony was wrong about that, or what he might have meant.
That's a very interesting question, because that's the one I was pondering about, why it was Brutus that was the only one that would be honored. I think that his major motive was whatever was best for Rome. And he
it's because Brutus is literally a noble man. Brutus is descended from the last king of Rome, and that's one of the reasons that Cassius and the other conspirators really wanted him in the group. He carried more weight in his inheritance, and he had gone to school and grown up and fought with Caesar, so they certainly knew each other and they were very close. But they needed him. Remember, I don't know if you were too young, when Bush first ran, Bush II, in 2000, and they put his Cheney in as his VP, the news came up with the word gravitas. He was there for gravitas. So Brutus was there with the assassins as the gravitas to give them legitimacy, because he was a really important person in many, many ways. That's how he's the noblest man of all.
They're at the same time, though, a decision's a decision. However, I think that he may be noble, but how does that a noble person could end up making what could be considered a quote-unquote wrong decision?
Well, he didn't say he made the right decision. He just said he was respected as the noblest one of all. I'll give you a story. This is lifted almost word for word from Plutarch's Lives that compares Caesar and Alexander. Shakespeare needed a new play, and he spent 2 weeks writing it. And I had a student ask one time, did Caesar actually say et tu Brutus? So if you go back and you look at the Plutarch, not in Plutarch, so that's entirely Shakespeare. And I'm sure that was to emphasize that character. He doesn't say et tu December, he doesn't say et tu Cassius, he doesn't say et tu anybody else. He says et tu Brutus. That was to Brutus is the protagonist, and that was to emphasize Brutus's power and position.
Yes, I find that is emphasized throughout the play. There's a monologue that Cassius has toward the beginning about how if he were Brutus, he would not have anything to do with the conspiracy. Because of the fact that he was a noble, he had the most to lose, and because Caesar loved him so much.
Yes, he comes in last. He's not in the beginning.
Yeah.
I think I think Brutus is structured like the main character for Julius Caesar, even though Julius Caesar does get the bill as he gets the upper bill because he's the most prominent name.
This is strange. It is. I was thinking about this. We get Julius Caesar and we lose him in the third act, but even in the Agamemnon, he only has like 2 or 3 speeches in the entire play. But they name it the Agamemnon.
Yeah, they should have called it the chorus.
Yeah, Caesar.
Yeah.
Famous enough for anybody that they would know who that was.
But I think, I mean, it makes it's. I think the major events surround the events that take place pertaining to Caesar rather than Brutus is just a major. It's kind of like the Blondie comic strip. It's become far more about Dagwood the past 80 some odd years. But as far as Julius Caesar's concerned, because Brutus had it, a lot of it is based off of his decision making and his inner complications, and usually the central character in a Shakespeare play is the one that dies at the end, within that pocket that Brutus died, rather than in the middle. But I think a good work is not supposed to be structured traditionally. It's like music, where to me every song seems to be structured the same way. For instance, just list like Miley Cyrus's "The Climb" or Taylor Swift's "You Belong with Me." Those are examples of the quote-unquote traditional structure. I think that what makes something unique is when it goes against the traditional structure, and I think that this play is a prime example. I mean, it's a history. Ultimately it's a tragedy, but it's based off of actual historical events. So,
well, I mean, I think that there's something to be said for novelty, and then they say that the true master is somebody who understands the fundamentals of their craft to the point where they are free to take liberties. But novelty for novelty's sake is something else. We'll be talking about that in a few weeks when we go over Finnegan's Wake.
Shakespeare wanted a tragedy, and certainly tragedy is the end of Caesar's life. It makes perfect place for a play.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, it's the climax rather than the conclusion.
Yes. Yes.
Which is an interesting place to put it. And Dan was just saying before he hasn't read it, and before I had read it, I would have thought the same thing, that the play would end with Julius Caesar's death.
With losing Caesar.
Yeah, and not at all. It's Brutus.
I watched a great adaptation in high school.
Oh yeah.
Where, while we were going, because I think that it's helpful when you read and watch the adaptation, especially with Shakespeare. And I think that the people that played in each role were they did a good job. Especially, I think Brutus especially really stuck out. Him and Cassius. Even though with Cassius, reading back on this, I think there's a great sense of what you could call a romantic fondness that Cassius had for Brutus. It was during that time. It wasn't anything that was abnormal, and in that place.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think that's an unusual take on it. After Cassius had bad eyesight. So
just the way that he said, the way he spoke to Brutus.
He's looking at the wrong person.
The way that he spoke to, even though he and Brutus was already he was married to Portia, but the way that Cassius spoke to him, it felt like he was romantically interested in him.
If you read old passages like that all the time out of history, they all were like that. Men slept in the same beds together. Lincoln slept in double beds with men together because that was all that was available when you went on the road. And
as did Moses.
Didn't have anything to do with their sexuality one way or the other. And he might have admired him very, very much. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we got to be careful when men admire one another that
yes. Yeah.
that they're free to do that without certain suspicions or insinuations being made about it. So I think that strong words of admiration between men are expected, and it's just a part of friendship.
Maybe not. I mean, that it could have been to the point of friendship, but the way it just the vibe that it took off, the language more so than maybe the intentions.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on anything. But I did think that those were definitely the two strongest characters of the play. I like them a lot in the story. They're the ones that held my interest throughout. I had not read this play before this, for preparing for this.
I mean, they drove the events of the play. You have Cassius is I would say, the key antagonist because he is probably the one that does the most to influence Brutus to join their side and kill Caesar. And Brutus, because of his complexity, because he is the one that teeters on as both an ally and a conspirator. You don't get as much of his ally side within the play, but he and Caesar were close.
Well, he was a very reluctant conspirator. They only get him at the end. He becomes the 8th conspirator. Yeah. He's not the beginning of it by any means. He just begins to see that Caesar has been historically elected by the Senate to everything that made him a dictator. And he had held that, I think, by this time for 3 years. And I don't think that there was, maybe around the populace, any real disturbance with that, but it was a problem for the elite, of which Cassius, Brutus, and all the rest of them are. They are all senators, meaning they're in inherited noble positions for the most part. Caesar actually comes with a good name, but he only made his money because he married 4 wives and he married up each time. He never had a legitimate heir that we know of or who survived. Augustus is a great nephew who follows him because he doesn't have any blood nephew to follow or son to follow him.
He has an Octavius too.
I was going to say he has the famous name, but he doesn't have the power and the money till he has the army, and then he brings the army into Rome, and then he has everything. How horrendous he might have been, I have no idea, and they don't bring that up in the play at all. We just know that he's very self-centered because when he's begged to release or bring back from exile one of the conspirators' brothers, he says he won't do so. He made a decision, and once he made a decision, it was constant as the northern star, and he would not change his mind. I always wondered if he had changed his mind, if that would have changed the assassination, but it just showed to the conspirators that he was impossible. He was not going to change his mind. He was not going to be influenced, and that's what they didn't like at all.
Yeah, yes, definitely.
Now Caesar actually ultimately, over the course of his reign, he held, is it 5 offices?
Yeah, he held all the top offices for, I think, 3 years just before the assassination. He also, this is not in this play, but historically, he also brought Cleopatra from Egypt, with whom he had an affair, and they supposedly had a son. That's where we get the word Caesarean. And she was living in a villa at the time that he was assassinated. She packed up and left immediately. But she was thinking her son was going to rule the empire. There was no emperor at the time, but it was certainly becoming an empire. The first real Caesar is Augustus himself. It's not Julius Caesar.
I do need to do more research on Roman history.
Well, I taught this play for like 30 years, so I have a lot of background on the play. And I'll tell you something funny when you talk about the relationship possibly between Cassius and Brutus, probably not that far out of range. There was a dirty joke about Caesar. To every man, to every woman, Caesar was a husband. To every man, Caesar was a wife. So they didn't have a Christian view of how people live their lives. But he was a powerful man. He gave them the British Empire. He gave them Egypt. He gave them Gaul. He gave them Great Britain. He gave them Spain. That was all Julius Caesar. I would have thought they would have hesitated more in assassinating him. But they also knew he didn't have a direct heir. They what was going to happen afterwards, I cannot imagine. What did the conspirators, we don't have any idea, what did the conspirators think Rome was going to be like once they had done away with Caesar? They didn't seem to have any known idea, certainly not in the play.
No, just platitudes or whatever you want to call it, right? Just like what is it? Peace, liberty, and one other word.
Fraternity.
Yeah, like an Obama speech. Just throwing out those words that everybody likes, but don't necessarily mean anything depending on what you're doing.
And they maybe from another angle, but they joked about that on Family Guy, where all they needed to do was all Lois had to say was September 11th.
Oh yeah.
But she was saying it they were coming from the other point of view. However, there's not much of a difference between what's coming from the left and what's coming from the right.
No, there's not.
Yeah.
The Uni-Party becomes more evident every day.
Yeah, there's one, it's like what's coming out of one toilet and what's coming out of the other toilet.
Mm-hmm.
The left toilet and the right toilet. But, do you think that there was a major significance, besides among any other supporting characters that we didn't mention? I think Brutus, Cassius, Mark Antony was somewhat, he was more somebody that seemed to just mediate on the Caesar side when...
He lived with Caesar.
Mm.
He lived in the villa, in Caesar's villa with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a general. He was 25 or 26 when this takes place. And I certainly think he thinks he's going to get it. He didn't get it. He got into a civil war. But I think in the beginning he thought he was going to inherit it from Caesar. It didn't work out that way exactly. Actually, some of his descendants do become Julian Caesars, but not him himself. When you talk about acting, there's a great movie from the 50s with Marlon Brando as Mark Antony. It's really worth seeing.
And the things that take place in this play are followed up in Antony and Cleopatra, which is or Coriolanus is the very last... Coriolanus is the very last Shakespeare tragedy. Antony and Cleopatra was one of the plays that Joseph Brodsky, the works that he suggested people read in order to have an intelligent conversation. 4 of them were Shakespeare plays, and that was one of them. But looking at the character list, Augustus Caesar does not appear in the play, in this play.
No.
But the Brutus that is mentioned in this version goes by the first name of Marcus, because you have Marcus Brutus and Decius Brutus. You have Cassius.
Yeah, there were many. There were for instance, there's multiple names, and I think that had to do with inheritance and lineage. It's like all the kings of England have Arthur as the middle name somewhere along the line. There's never actually been a King Arthur. Anybody that's been named Arthur is going to be king if it doesn't make it. A lot of them have the same. Gaius is famous too as one of them. I think he's Gaius Julius Caesar. He's not just Julius Caesar.
Okay. Here we have Cinna and Casca, which are some of the conspirators, even though their roles were not as major. The soothsayer, the one that gave the warning to the Caesar to beware the Ides of March. It's interesting because people know the saying, but who it was that said it. I think it's interesting to note. Well,
also the Ides of March would have been the 1st of March. Our calendar is in 180 positions flipped. We now have the Ides are the 15th for us of March. They would have been the 1st of March for Caesar. It was an auspicious day. That's why he's going to the Senate. A good day.
And I think back in that day, the year started with March, because there was no January or February until several centuries later.
It became a bad day, but it was a good
Mm-hmm. But yeah, because you had that because George Washington, his birthday was viewed as it was February 11th during his time rather than February 22nd during our
Yes,
time.
in our calendar. Yeah.
Yes. But was there anything anybody else wanted to say as far as this play is concerned?
I like the fact that we have two women. They are not exactly major characters, but they're significant pivotal characters. Certainly Calpurnia and Portia. They're really worth looking at. Portia says that Brutus won't share with her, and they're not really married if he doesn't share everything with her, and she demands that he do so. And Calpurnia tells Caesar, "I had a bad dream. Don't go to the Senate today." So they really influence and affect the plot, even though they're very tiny in significance as far as the lines that they have to say and the time that they're on stage.
I still think Lady Macbeth is one of the most influential female characters in the Shakespeare play.
She is. Yeah, she is. Oh, but then there's Portia in the can't even think. Of Shylock, the Merchant of Venice.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
She's a terrific character.
Yeah.
He is very good with his female characters.
He's
People
good.
who say he hated women, he was a sexist, blah, 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 aren't paying attention.
He is very advanced as a playwright, but I mean, as I always, he's more of a writer than he is he's better with words than he is with story, but I think that this is one of his strongest pieces.
Oh yes, I like all the tragedies,
Right.
and I taught this as a sophomores for years, and I've always considered it an important play, and not only because it has some history in it, but because it really has real drama in it.
I can't say the same as far as tragedies.
It's really dramatic and it's really tragic. Sometimes the tragedies don't quite seem to be there, and it is tragic. There's no doubt about it.
Like Titus Andronicus, it's just a tragedy that it was ever written.
Oh my God! Just everybody dies.
It's a great play.
I don't know that he really wrote it. Some of the plays that were attributed to him.
You sure hope he did.
Folio
You should hope he
doubtful.
did.
He would have lost his mind if he really wrote Titus Andronicus. They just cut off people's hands and cut off people's heads, and he doesn't do that anywhere else. So that's a vampire.
They had it coming.
Does anybody have any final thoughts?
Well, I just think that it's interesting, about jealousy, resentment, and power, and how, you have to guard it. If you are in a position of power, you have to be careful and guard against those feelings and those fears. And
Ambition and power are big themes for Shakespeare. He's very interested in ambition.
yeah,
Remember, Marcus Antony takes away. He says, Julius Caesar did this. Does that make him ambitious? Julius Caesar did that. Does that make him? So he is working on the ambition.
yeah.
Alrighty then. Was there anything else you wanted to say, Cyndi?
No.
Already, how would we rate it? 0 to 5 stars, half stars permitted. Larry?
I go 3 stars. It's not my favorite Shakespeare. I like Hamlet better. I like Macbeth better. I like Romeo and Juliet better. And I even like Titus Andronicus better.
And you're the one that picked this.
I picked it because I wanted to read it. And now that I read it, it was okay.
I mean, that's happened with me. I mean, I picked Ghost Story and Go Tell It on the Mountain, and
You
there's
didn't care for them so much.
plenty of things I like better.
Yeah.
I would say we're going to be, actually, I preferred I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy better. We'll use that as an example.
Well, that book got a lot of praise last time we were together.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go 3. I thought that it was a little bit unclear as to what people's motivations were, and so that's why I wasn't I wasn't really compelled by it, so I'll give it 3.
Cyndi?
Okay. It's well written, but no, it's not my favorite. I too love Romeo and Juliet. That would be my favorite. So 3.5 stars.
Renny?
Okay, I'm going to give it a 4. It's not one of the great dark tragedies like Macbeth, Hamlet, Othello, and King Lear, but it's right up there with tragedies. It's something very worthwhile reading and entertaining. After all, Shakespeare's purpose was to entertain. I think this is more entertaining than we actually think in many, many ways. And I like it. And I spent a lot of time with it and still like it.
I'm giving it a 4 as well. Out of the plays that I've read, Macbeth is number 1. I would say this and Hamlet would contend for number 2. I like Caesar better than Romeo and Juliet. And I like anything better than Titus Andronicus.
I just want to say I like King Lear better, too. I like King Lear better than this as well. That's another one I forgot about.
King Lear's good. I would say, I mean, I could probably reread Pericles, and I would say it's better than Titus Andronicus, and that one was weird.
That would be a fun video if we all just,
no good either.
if we sat down and thought about, like, and ranked our favorite plays of Shakespeare. I think that would be a fun video to do.
I think it would be interesting. I'd like to read all of them,
Yeah.
and then get to doing so, because I have my book right here. I've read 1, kind of 2, 3, 4. I think Richard III is the big one that people talk about. 5.
Have you ever
6.
done Richard III?
No.
No, I haven't. That's probably
it would be worth doing. Yeah.
Yes, that's the one that's been the most.
It's one of his histories.
Did we do Macbeth on the show?
Yes.
We did? No, I wasn't there.
That was back in season 4. It was John, Jackie, Charlie, and I. 7, 8, 9.
I've read that since I was in your class, Miss Harper.
11, 12, 13, 14. I've read 15 of them. Because, I made sure I read Two Gentlemen of Verona because the other choice was Two Noble Kinsmen, and that clearly was a Fletcher play.
Well, didn't we do Two Gentlemen of Verona in class?
We had the choice between Two Gentlemen of Verona and Two Noble Kinsmen. And you split us into groups.
That's right. Okay.
But yeah, I've read. I'm about halfway there. I just need to read some more, and I'll come up with. That would be an interesting project to do on our own if we don't get to all of these.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that you pick up this collection from Fall River Press because I got this for $7.98. It's a very affordable collection, and it has all the plays. It's within reasonable arrangement. Maybe not what they may want everything laid out accordingly, but I think it would be interesting to. I might consider doing that on my own. We'll have to see, but
yeah, or we could just do the ones we've read. We could do that too as a video.
Have we covered Henry V?
No.
Have you done any of the histories?
No. I mean, the one I was given.
Do Henry V, a major play, been on Broadway and everywhere else.
Already. I just want to let everybody know that if you're interested in reading this, I would highly suggest this collection of Shakespeare's plays. And we're going to talk a little more about Shakespeare, and we probably will talk more about Shakespeare with you in the future. Be sure to join us next time on another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading.